So I'm trying to define, first of all, to myself and then to others, what I actually believe spiritually in the world. What I, after all these years of different philosophies and stuff like that, just summing everything up together, okay? So what I believe is I do believe in a higher power, okay? But I feel like the higher power that I believe in is it's very like hard to define. It's also simple at the same time, but I just feel like so many people have tried to sort of define exactly what it is. Now, when I was 18 and then 19 years old in India, I got this book called The Spiritual Elixir, and it's by Kirpal Singh, who was a Sikh from the Punjab. Um, he lived around Jalandhar, Amritsar, Chandigarh, those areas, and he was a big influence on me. And I actually heard about him a little over a year before I actually went to India. It was actually right around a year before I went to India. When I was 17, I was in Vermont, and I met some friends, and their mother was really into Kirpal Singh. So I heard of Kirpal Singh before I went to India, and I feel like that almost like planted the seed for me to go to India. I like the way I got to go to India was very kind of cosmic, and it sort of just happened. You know what I mean? Like it was like my mom just happened to have a friend that would go on these tours, and it was sponsored, and I wrote this like thing, this like why I wanted to go, and so I got to kind of go to this thing, and I was only supposed to go for 19 days, but and then I was going to come back and go back to school. So anyway, before I got started on that trip, I went through some periods where I was kind of into the Bible and stuff, like uh, so I have parents from two different backgrounds. My father was raised Catholic. My mom was Jewish, but my mom was not like super religious. But her sister and her sister's husband used to do more for the holidays. So sometimes we would do like holidays with them, and there's a certain mystical aspect to things that kind of like spoke to me, right? But then it's like there is a Christian aspect to my dad's um, and I say Christian because even though my dad was a Catholic, he I feel like he wasn't that he wasn't like following the religion all the time, but he was kind of into the I feel like he was kind of into the Jesus thing a little bit, but it was kind of like he wasn't into it like all the time, but like it was kind of like you could just tell he sort of had like a Jesus like a respect for Jesus kind of thing, you know. So I didn't really know that much about the Bible, and I used to always have people come up and tell me about the Bible, like almost like I had to tell. Like one time, me and my brother were walking, and these people were like, "We drove all the way from San Rafael because we knew we had to tell somebody about Jesus," and so like I had all these kind of like um people preaching the gospel to me when I was young, and I just felt like it happened a lot. Like I would end up in some gospel-y kind of situation. And like at first I kind of wasn't into it, but then it's like coupled with sort of not feeling good about a lot of things, it kind of started speaking to me more. So I sort of developed being a little bit more of a spirituality, but I was also really into Eastern kind of stuff, Bodhidharma, Dharma Milk, like a lot of cool people were really into Eastern philosophies. Even like the Beastie Boys were into Tibetan Buddhism. I got kind of into the Tibetan Buddhists, and so I had this kind of all around sort of craving to understand some kind of truth, right? I was not like how a lot of people just don't want to believe in anything higher. Um, I don't think that's really like most people. It's because they weren't raised with like anything. I mean, that's not really true, but I just sort of feel like I never really related to the people that could just go through and sort of like not believe in anything. Like I used to have a friend who was really smart, and we would have arguments, and he would be like, "I just think that we're just like food for worms when we die," and I'm like, "No, I don't know. I don't think we just. I think our body ends, and but I don't think that like our spirit ends." And also, I was thinking about eating meat and all that, and like I was always going back and forth. Better to be vegetarian. No, you need to be a meat eater. And what I thought about today, this might sound really crazy, but what I think about with meat eating is that in general, meat, if you have like good healthy meat, is good for your body. I don't think it's great for your mental, right? So so I think that you can have certain elements that are good for certain aspects of you and not good for other aspects of you. And that's what I realized about meat is that um, sometimes it's healthy to eat meat for your body, but it might not be that great for your mind, right? So it's a very complex thing, and I know it sounds crazy, but I do eat meat sometimes. I had some sardines recently, and that's something I'm torn about because I really like people like Durian Rider. I like a lot of people that are vegan, and I kind of actually like sort of relate with veganism, and I know a lot of people that are vegan, but like I always feel like I fall off that wagon. But I don't eat a lot of meat too, so I don't eat like I eat probably like one or twice a week, you know. So it's almost like just enough, almost like a medicine, like almost like I feel like my body just needs some. And I mean, I know, you know, I'm probably gonna make a lot of people upset because you know people on the meat side are gonna be like, oh, do you need meat? What are you talking about? People on the non-meat side, and that's why I kind of straddle in the middle where I don't really appeal to anybody in a way. And that's why I'm sort of like a cult of one right now because I feel like I'm still developing what I believe, and that sounds really mixed up, but it makes sense to me. So I had to really like go back and forth on what I believe in it, and it's still not even set in stone, right? But anyway, so the basis of spiritual elixir and Kirpal Singh is that like all the religions come from a similar space, right? A similar divine energy, right? Whether it's Muslim, Jewish, Christian, it's all about and Sikhism, and it's all about sort of like a higher power, and these were different manifestations of God trying to explain it, right? Whether it was Jesus, Muhammad, all that, right? So I got really into this meditation where you actually like hear this like cosmic sound in the universe, and somehow it kind of like it's hard to explain, but it kind of makes you feel more certain of higher power, because there's like this there's this sound that's always in the universe, right? And if you get in touch with that, it sort of like beams you up, you know. So anyway, I got really into that whole meditation, and then I shaved off my head because people in India were like, okay, you're gonna go back into society now. You need to be like a normal person. And I wish I hadn't. My friend Mooney was like, what did you do? Why did you cut your hair, right? So anyway, I cut my hair. I went back to America, and then I started working, and you know, I had said that I wasn't going to eat meat, but then I worked at this Mexican food restaurant, and sometimes I'd be eating some chicken, because there's chicken burritos. I really tried not to eat a lot, but sometimes it's just like I didn't have the best willpower when it came to food, right? So anyway, I've kind of had this weird relationship with vegetarianism where I've gone back and forth with it all these years, but I respect it. So anyway, like a year later or so, I was working for a Greek guy. We were doing like Greek food. We were doing like fairs, and he had a restaurant, but we were also doing fairs. And this one lady was a Christian, and she was telling me that I need to be Christian, and I was like, well, the whole point is that, you know, I tried to explain that no one religion is 100% right because it all stems from this similar divine being, right? And she was like, "Oh no, that's demonic. That is from hell. That kind of teaching, you know." And you know, you got to go with Jesus, right? And it kind of haunted me because, like, I was like, what if she's right? Oh shit, you know. But I was like, I was kind of like teetering on this kind of back and forth thing, right? But I still felt really convinced of the Kirpal Singh thing, you know, and I was still meditating and everything. And then the next year when I was in Los Angeles, I was friends with some African Americans, and they brought me to an African American church, and I had this whole huge religious experience. It was on Crenshaw, that big church on Crenshaw, and I had this real big kind of epiphany there. And this guy was like, the Lord will always have His hand on you, and blah blah blah, you know. And I like took it really seriously, you know. But the whole point is like, you know, I was like, oh yeah, I believe in Jesus, but I believe Jesus is like the same energy of the stuff I learned from Kirpal Singh, right? It's like all from the same source, right? So I always had a hard time going like, you know, you have to believe this one thing and it's not anything else. So that's what I've had a hard time reconciling in my whole spiritual journey. So anyway, that was 97, so that was a couple years after my India journey. But then I don't know, I kept on meeting Christian people and they kept speaking to my heart, and I kept sort of flirting with Christianity, and I don't know, it seemed kind of like it had so much of the right stuff to it, right? And it just seemed like it was the winning ingredient. But I also didn't like it because I didn't like the fact that people would say you have to believe this one thing or you go to hell, especially since I have you know, Jewish family on my mom's side, and so not that there can't be Jews for Jesus. That's another thing. I've also met Messianic, you know, Jewish believers too. But anyway, but I just had a hard time with the whole you must believe this, you must believe this, or else you're going to hell, and you know. So anyway, I just kept on sort of like this sort of faith of something higher, you know, and you know, and then I still wanted to do my music and everything, so I went and I was back in LA and I was trying to do my music. Um, remember I met someone who was Jehovah's Witness, and I never really really understood that. I didn't go off into like Mormonism or Jehovah's Witness. It was always kind of like, you know, the raw Christianity or like the Buddhism. You know, I actually would talk even to these Russian Orthodox people that I really liked in Santa Rosa at this bookstore called Not of This World, and I always really liked the intensity of the Russian Orthodox. But it was just so it's always seemed so extreme to me, and it's always been too hard for me to go 100% on that path because I just feel like, you know, there's going to be so many people that you're friends with that are going to feel alienated, you know. Um, and also, I do like, you know, also like in 2001, I went to Israel just for 2 weeks, very, you know, and so that made me kind of more into like I like the Jewish stuff, right? That was like I thought that was really cool, and then I was like kind of like learning more about Jewish stuff, you know, and it all ties together, you know, and so you know that's you know I kind of like Bob Dylan because he was like kind of like all over the place too. He was like a little this, a little that, you know. But I mean, I know a lot of people go, oh, but you got to commit to one thing, you know. But my one thing right now is my journey, my cult of one person, just trying to figure it out, you know. And so where am I now in the journey? Well, I would go to a church or a synagogue, you know, and feel fine, and and I believe in a higher power, and but I also believe what this guy says from Sikhism, Kirpal Singh, and you know, oh, I also had a when I was in North Carolina, a little after I got back from India, there was a guy, a Greek guy that I was older guy that I was renting a room from, and he was like, "Oh, the Western stuff is the best. Forget all your Eastern Indian, all the Western philosophies and the Western religions are all the best." And it's weird because it's like you hear so many people say different things, and everything sort of affects you, even if you don't want it to. So I'm just like, oh yeah, maybe. And then but then I'm like, I'm always go. And then I went back to India again, 2014. You know, so I still do the Simran. The Simran is like a group of Sanskrit words that you think, you don't say it out loud, and you meditate on them anyway. So sometimes if I'm in a stressful situation, I'll do that. It's kind of like how the Buddhists do Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, except they say it out loud, and we're supposed to just think. We're not supposed to say the words out loud. That's another thing is my friend got me really into Buddhism too. But I I'm more into doing a mantra inside than reciting it outside because I feel like there's an internal thing that happens when you don't recite it out loud and you just kind of you do the mantra inside, and that's actually kind of what transcendental meditation does too. But I've never did transcendental meditation. But my friend Susie did it, and I went with her to some of the things, but I never signed up for it. So as you can see, I'm all over the map, but in a way I'm not because I just believe in one sort of universal energy power that is there for us and will show us the right way. And so this all ties back to I wrote this song. Now you know it all, you know it all. Now you know it all, you know it all. Congratulations. Now you know it all, you know it all. It's about people that think that they're the ones that are right. So I guess I'm standing in a surrenderance of that and saying I might not always know what's right. I'm trying to figure that out, right? And there was a guy at a party a month ago, and you know, he was ragging on religions and stuff like that, and I kind of was not going along with it, and it seemed like he got angry at me or something. It's like because I wasn't going along with it, and it's like I'm not like a hyper religious person, but I do believe in something, right? And some people, when they don't believe in something, they think it's cheesy, you know. So I don't know. I'm trying to understand what my faith is